tradition for tomorrow. J.M. Schneider Incorporated. Knowledge of the past builds the foundation for tomorrow. Few companies have preserved their history as has J.M. Schneider. Few companies have such a strong sense of pride in their past as does J.M. Schneider. And the pride shows through in everything they do. J.M.'s original statement of quality, "Nothing goes in my sausages that I wouldn't feed my own family," rings down to the present day. Quality products. Quality people.
J.M. himself said it so fine. He knew it was right. He knew it was time. He said, let's do it right. Let's give it our best. Let the history books tell you the rest.
Today, I have to change this new Constitution.
It's 1886, and as the story goes, John Metz Schneider found himself injured and temporarily out of work from the Dominion button factory. I guess we'd call him between jobs today. To support his growing family, he set up a sausage grinder in his kitchen. With the help of his wife and his mother's country sausage recipe, J.M. began production. Here comes our first salesman now, J.M. himself, going door to door. The product must have been popular because J.M. kept on making sausage even after he returned to the button factory. Not wanting to give up his day job, J.M. continued for 2 more years, working 10 hours a day in the button factory and countless hours in the evening making sausage. Schneiders had been launched. J.M. increased his sales to area grocers and butchers located in the town hall's basement. With some success and a whopping $600 saved, J.M. quit his factory job and built his dream shop on Cortlandt Avenue.
This was a busy time in Canada. The telephone had arrived. A decade earlier, the West was being opened by rail. Moving pictures had everyone enthralled, and the town was enjoying an industrial boom.
The building was a 1.5-story house with a retail store out front. The operative word being house. J.M. still wasn't sure the business would make it, and he felt a residential structure would have a better chance on the resale market. In fact, if you would have offered J.M. $300 for the business, he probably would have taken it. After careful calculation and consideration, J.M. believed the business was failing. Fortunately, his brother-in-law checked the books and pointed out that J.M. had neglected to include his inventory in his figurings.
The business was more than solvent, and the dreaded bank loan could be avoided.
He borrowed $200 one time, and he went home, and he just couldn't sleep. The next day, he took that $200 back to that fellow and says, "Here's your $200. I can't stand this owing money."
J.M. moved to increase production. He was already curing ham and bacon, but he could not find a suitable variation on his popular sausage. He hired Wilhelm Rohleder for the job, but Mr. Rohleder didn't show up for his first day of work. Apparently, a competing butcher had lured him away. When J.M. caught up with him, Rohleder was persuaded to join the company with the help of a monetary incentive program. He stayed with the company for 45 years, and among his many contributions, developed the Schneiders Wiener, a gastronomical delight in the last days of the 1800s.
Wilfrid Laurier was prime minister. The automobile was racing around town at speeds of 10 miles an hour. One policeman kept the peace amongst Berlin's population of 10,000. At the turn of the century, J.M. had 12 employees, and they were processing 50 hogs and 15 cattle weekly.
This was the state of the world when J.M.'s boys entered the workforce. First, Charles, regarded as the happy-go-lucky and athletic playboy of the family. He worked in shipping. Then came Herbert, most like his father, quiet, serious, and in charge of the office until his premature death at age 19. Norman was delayed slightly by his interest and consequent job in the gas engine industry. His knowledge would become invaluable in setting up operations at the Schneiders plant later. And then, Fred entered the family business, accompanying his father on buying trips and picking up the office duties where his brother Herbert left off. The boys put in long hours, 7 a.m. till sometimes as late as 11 p.m., hauling ice from nearby Victoria Lake for refrigeration, clerking in the retail store, and working in the newly acquired abattoir.
In 1912, the company name changed to reflect their hard work. J.M. Schneider became J.M. Schneider & Sons Limited. Coincidentally, Berlin became a city the same year, having reached the required population of 15,000. Hydroelectricity had arrived by this time, as well as a ban on cutting ice from Victoria Lake. This provided the impetus to install a 10-ton compressor for refrigeration in the plant. Norman was convinced to join the company, and he was put in charge of the newfangled equipment that would last for 40 years. Other modern advances included telephone orders. Just dial 117. Hogs were being processed at the rate of 40 to 50 a day. Almost every train shipped out a Schneider's product. The city provided sewage disposal, and garbage was picked up every second week. Could modern life get any better?
While incorporating all the innovations of the day, J.M. maintained his standards of quality and some elements from the past. Animals were still hand-chosen by J.M. and walked 9 miles into town and through the streets to the abattoir. Local customers received their orders by horse and buggy, and J.M. still worked side by side with his employees. The next 10 years would be a period of incredible growth and expansion. J.M. gradually gave control to his sons, who took the company beyond that of a local butcher shop.
About this time, Norman was appointed winter salesman. With the refrigeration shut down and the windows flung open for the cold season, Norman would concentrate on the wholesale aspect of the business.
J.M. was the first salesman. I was the second. I had a Ford Model T car, and I drove all over. And I would walk into a store and tell them who I was, and they said, "Oh yes, we have your ketchup on the shelves here, Schneiders ketchup." I said, "No, this is Schneider meats." So I would have to coax them and wheedle them to get a trial order. I said, "That's all I want. I just want enough that you will see these products, try them in your own home, and if you like them, you'll order some more. If you don't like them, we won't bother you again."
A second commission sales agent was tried briefly before promoting Bert Staley to full-time sales representative. Bert covered southwestern and south central Ontario by train. He visited customers in Galt, Preston, Owen Sound, London, and Niagara.
Sales soared. $62,000 in 1913, $137,000 in 1914, and despite World War I, $200,000 in 1916. The figure more than tripled by the end of the war. A phenomenal feat considering the fact that there were only 2 or 3 salespeople on the road and everything was in short supply because of the war. During this period, the company adopted the Canadian beaver as a part of its logo, and the city changed its name to Kitchener. After the war, the company embarked on an aggressive campaign of mailing price and order cards every 2 weeks to spearhead the sales program. The determined work of the sales staff paid off. By 1920, sales topped $1 million. A 10,000 square foot addition was made to the plant, as well as improvements to the abattoir. The company bought its first truck for $1,000. Schneiders was off and roaring into the 1920s.
J.M. Schneider and Sons continued to support their people, believing that employees should be treated like family members. In 1917, a profit-sharing program was introduced. J.M. believed in full employment, promotion from within, and even hiring members of the same family. In that same year, the company invested in a truck for local deliveries and picking up supplies from the abattoirs. The truck was chain-driven, had no heater, and provided a rough ride on hard tires.
Well, and what are you doing in the new year?
Well, this is the year that the company moves to its new site on Cortland Avenue. Oh, Jane, I'd like you to meet Howard Volker, our new sales manager.
Oh, Mr. Vogel, pleased to meet you.
The Roaring Twenties brought flappers, the Charleston, prohibition, and economic prosperity. Schneiders moved to the present-day facilities, and sales manager Howard Volker was hired from Swift Canadian Company in Toronto. Schneiders had indeed grown beyond a local business. Mr. Volker continued the annual sales conferences begun 3 years before, and sales climbed to $1.5 million by 1925.
At one of these early meetings, a sales rep approached J.M. and asked him, "J.M., what do you do with the back end of those pigs?" Without missing a beat, J.M. replied, "Well, that's the part we pickle and sell to our salesmen."
1927 brought a merging of the William Davis Company with Canada Packing, Guns Limited, and Harris Abattoir. This left a surplus of established salesmen at loose ends. Schneiders picked 12 of the best, who helped topple the old record by another million. More importantly, this experienced sales force literally saved Schneiders from succumbing to the crash of '29. Their experience and established territories buffered the company from the brunt of the Depression.
Meanwhile, Norman was visiting U.S. and Canadian packaging plants to gather ideas for the new building. His basic philosophy? Measure existing facilities, then double their floor space for Schneider and Sons. J.M. could not comprehend the need for all the space and repeatedly told his sons. Much more to his concern was the need to borrow money. $200,000.
The company responds to the Depression by taking care of their own and their community. The traditional picnics buoy spirits and satisfy appetites. No layoffs would occur as Schneiders developed a job-sharing program to spread the reduced work around. Employees chipped in by controlling waste and reducing operating costs where they could. While other companies went under, Schneiders managed to show a small profit.
The barter system became an all too common occurrence. In order to gather some form of compensation for their wares, salesmen of the 30s would accept nearly anything. Old oil paintings, meat slicers. One fellow even took a pony in lieu of payment. He had the local vet check the beast out for its worth, and the vet advised he better go back and get the saddle, too. On the community front, the company made up bundles of neck, rib, thigh, and brisket bones for the local people to pick up. J.M. and his wife were always available to feed people who knocked on their door at home. Product lines were expanded to make up for the faltering beef sales. Additions of eggs, butter, and cheese were made, as well as pigtails. Originally regarded as a traditional German dish, pigtails were discovered at Schneiders. A foreman noticed an employee sneaking an occasional tail into the ovens with the other baked meats and removing it just in time for lunch. The foreman sampled the contraband and reported his delicious find to management. The rest is pig history.
The last verse says, "So here's to the pigtails, they're not overrated, although I'll admit they're badly located. So remember, boys, that Schneiders the firm that made you eat pig from the stem to the stern."
Now the squeal is the only thing that leaves the Schneiders plant unpackaged.
World War II was on. Schneiders had weathered the dirty 30s, bringing their sales back online, $3.4 million, with export sales, primarily to Great Britain, beginning to climb. The new vitamin-enriched meat and cartoons and contests contributed to sales momentum through the latter half of the decade.
Expansion picked up with the addition of a creamery and beef abattoir, as well as the purchase of a Waterloo farm to house animals for continuous winter supply. Within 2 months of the outbreak of war, the company became directly involved. A British shipment of bacon was lost to a U-boat torpedo.
Exporting embargoes were placed on countries other than those in the British Empire. This effectively closed the U.S. market to the company. However, Canada was the primary source of bacon to Great Britain, and exports increased. Next, Ottawa restricted Schneiders' domestic quota, and the plant was limited to filling orders for established customers rather than seeking new accounts. Sales trucks were stored away as the market stalled, and sales reps were relegated to field incoming complaints about the shortages.
Schneiders encouraged their employees to enlist, giving a gold watch to men in active fighting duties. The Schneiders male chorus performed fundraising concerts, and workers bundled care packages to be sent to Schneiders employees overseas.
The 1942 annual sales conference came and went with one notable exception. J.M. would not attend due to illness. A few days later, John Metz Schneider was dead at the age of 83.
The little Dutch girl that you see on today's Schneiders products is a real person. She was working for a modeling agency in Toronto when she was selected to become an integral part of the Schneiders logo. But she wasn't the first Dutch girl. The Dutch theme originated with sales manager Howard Volker in 1936 and included not only a Dutch girl, but a Dutch boy as well. The Dutch boy had to be dropped due to government labeling requirements, but the idea of representing the Pennsylvania Dutch farm of the area was maintained. In 1941, the present Dutch girl entered the picture and smiles back at our customers from every Schneiders truck, Schneiders product, and even when they drive past the time and temperature sign on Highway 401. Airplane pilots use the sign as a landmark for navigation and lovingly refer to it as the Wiener Beacon. But more importantly, I know every time our customers see the smiling trademark, they're reminded of quality and good taste.
The post-war era saw startling innovations. Women who substituted for servicemen at work liked it and stayed. The Schneiders Employee Union was formed under President John Albrecht. Longtime employees were given the opportunity to buy shares in the company, fulfilling JM's wish to provide employee participation in as many ways as possible. The post-war era also brought a decline in British exports, which dealt a sudden blow to meat processors across Canada. But the loss was soon to be replaced by the market boom at home. Babies. Sell by the ton in 51 became the battle cry of the 55 salesmen competing to sell 1 million tons each and be admitted to the Millionaires Club. Sales hit 22 million in a 20-year trend that would see sales of 1 million a month grow to sales of 1 million a week. Part of the sales growth was the direct result of 73 million wieners being sold.
Bop bop shoo-be-dop shoo-be-dop bop 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 shoo-be-doo-wop bop doo-wop bop 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 rang-a-lang-a-ding-dong bop doo-wop.
Welcome to Weenie World. Can I take your order?
4 Schneiders hot dogs, please.
Among the high energy of sock hops, Elvis the Pelvis Presley, and the advent of television, Schneiders developed products and expanded facilities to move with the times. Vacuum packaging for longer shelf life and heat and serve convenience food reflected the changes in the modern household. Brand name recognition and package design became all important in the new self-service supermarkets. As the first man orbited Earth and the race to put a man on the moon was on, the company embarked on yet another expansion, the largest to date. It included a 4-floor building for labs, assembly rooms, and an art department. As construction began, another announcement was made, this time for 12,000 square feet for the poultry and sausage departments. A new powerhouse topped things off. Soon, a group of mop-haired rockers would be making their American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show. But before Canadians were hit with the influence of the Beatles music, they'd be whistling another tune.
I'm the Schneider Dutch girl, my famous family of mealtime treats from cheese to meats is proud of its quality. Meat are sliced meats
And spiced meats,
smoked meats,
Dutch treats,
smokies,
dry baby hams that come in cans,
are frozen meats.
are turkeys.
Schneider's meats are the choicest meats.
They appear on the choosiest table.
That's the choosiest choice in family foods.
Have Schneiders on the label.
As Schneiders approached their 75th birthday, it was time for the sons to pass the torch. Although the third generation was working their way up the ranks, it was decided to turn the reins over to Doug Small, senior executive and former salesman. Fred Jr. and Herb Schneider were promoted to vice presidential responsibilities.
The choosiest choice in family food.
At this transition point, the company was in the enviable position of selling more than they could produce.
Have Schneiders on the label.
On the occasion of our 75th anniversary, in this the year 1965, I present to you the J.M. Schneider & Sons Creed. A firm belief in the competitive system of free enterprise, wherein the opportunity to earn profits is essential to economic progress. To conduct and manage our business dealings in a manner to reflect credit to our company, our industry, and our country.
Canada was celebrating its 100th birthday amidst hippies, miniskirts, and Trudeaumania. Frederick P. Schneider assumes presidency and sets the company's goals to double the $70 million in sales by the end of the 70s. The goal was surpassed in 4 years. Aggressive marketing, an eye towards microwavable foods, and the availability of stocks on the public market were to sustain Schneiders through the inflationary years. 1970 saw a committee headed by Jack Ward create the catchphrase, "Taste the difference quality makes," and a sophisticated computer system installed. Expansion into the Canadian West set the stage for establishing Schneiders in the Pacific Rim countries and as a national food processor. Sales in 1974 totaled $202.3 million. What a decade in the sports arena. Paul Henderson's shot heard around the world. The '76 Olympics in Montreal. And the formation of the Toronto Blue Jays. Schneiders was reorganizing a new team as well. Diversification of products and realignment of the sales force into districts were to move Schneiders into the next decade. But as the recession hit the rest of the world, it also struck close to home. Government-imposed wage and price controls, and the failing economy through the 80s stalled the anticipated growth. Red meat consumption was down, and eating habits were leaning towards health food and convenience. Restructuring and the grooming of these new markets was inevitable.